everyone, so moving on to video number 2 now. So in this video I just want to mention some issues I had with the ADHD diagnosis letter, which I got via email. I've received a hand copy today, but I had some issues with the diagnosis letter, assessment letter, and I explained that to the secretary as well. I also had emailed her as well, so she had my email in front of her, and she did say that she would edit it and amend it, which is good. So I will be getting a revised version hopefully soon as well, so that was good. So hopefully she'll be sending me that very soon. But yeah, the assessment letter had some inaccuracies in it. That's pretty much, I'm used to this. Nearly every single medical letter you get has some inaccuracies in it. I hate inaccuracies. They really annoy me, and it's good to get them sorted as soon as possible. You need to get it sorted as soon as possible, really, if you notice any inaccuracies. You're allowed to do that, that's within your rights. You need to make sure you're happy with it. There was also one thing on there which wasn't an inaccuracy, but was something I didn't actually want to have on there, and that was my university degree. Now that is correct, I do have a university degree, that's not an inaccuracy, it's just something I didn't want on a report. I have a university degree, a 2-1 history degree, which I achieved, we're talking 17 years ago now, something ridiculous like that. And it hasn't got me anywhere in life. I can't work. It's people who don't know the backstory to it might see that and think, oh, she can't be that disabled. She got a degree. Why can't she go out and work? She's high functioning and intelligent. She got a degree. Yeah, because that's people who don't understand the backstory to it, and obviously, what led up to it and how much support I needed to get there. The fact I couldn't manage halls, I was at home when I did it. It wasn't a full university experience. I never moved out of where I live. It was basically just like an extension of school. It was a big achievement of mine. I'm not downplaying the achievement. It showed, I guess, what I can achieve potentially, if it wasn't for the fact I have all my problems. But yeah, like I was saying, it was only achieved thanks to a lot of support, intensive tuition, intensive parental basically help through my teenage years that most people don't receive, because it wasn't like I couldn't write essays until I was about 18. Like my dad, being a teacher, he taught me how to do this. It took a really, really long time. I did get there eventually, and I learned. It was thanks to a lot of intensive help, and I did finally manage to do it. But my mum was still organising everything for me. All my files and everything were organised because I couldn't manage that. I didn't have a social life. It was all I was doing every single day, and it was exhausting and stressful, and I couldn't go through that again. It was all I was doing every single day, but I was interested. It became one of my sort of special interests, if you want to call it that, the history I was studying. So I was interested. I spent hours on it intensively every single day, but I was doing nothing else. Absolutely nothing else. I had all my other needs met. I didn't have to manage laundry, cooking, all those other things. It was 100% monofocus every single day. Not the same thing as having a job at all. And I only did it thanks to a lot of background support. But anyway, nonetheless, it was an achievement. But it was 17 years ago. It's not relevant to my life now. I haven't been able to use that degree. I can't go out and work. I've never had a job, like a proper job. I've done like volunteering and permitted work in the past. It's DWP permitted work, which I couldn't keep up. But I've never done proper employment, and so it hasn't actually got me anywhere. But it's completely irrelevant to my life now, and I just feel that having it on that report could be used against me. Potentially, I'm not happy with having this is a report I might need to send off to the DWP for benefits, and potentially I'm not really keen on it being on that report that I have a university degree when it hasn't really when I haven't been able to use it. It's not relevant to my life, and it just seems completely irrelevant having on that report, and I also find it a little bit triggering and rather upsetting as well. But anyway, I explained this to the secretary, and she actually understood. She was like, yeah, sure, we can get rid of that for you, no problem. So that's fine. As I say, it's just not relevant. Why have something on there that's not relevant? When this is a report that is about me now, what's happening to me now, the fact I'm housebound, the fact I've got a degree is neither here nor there, but I can't even use it and I can't work. All that might happen. So someone who doesn't really understand might read it potentially and think, oh, she can't be that disabled. Seriously, by the way, I've had people do this before. I know it's used against me. Like, even like ignorant social workers, like, oh, she got a degree, she must be really intelligent and high functioning, blah, blah, blah. It is actually used against me, no joke. So I don't actually want to have that on the report. But anyway, that's been got off. So again, we come on to the inaccuracies in the report, and there were a few inaccuracies. One of the inaccuracies was that saying I've been housebound for 2 years. It's actually been 5 years since 2020. 5 years. So she changed that to 5. The other inaccuracy was saying that when I was a child I didn't have significant educational impairment, that my parents, because I'd had a lot of because of my parents had given me a lot of support, which they did, that I didn't have any significant educational impairments. Now that's not true. And if someone's reading that and they see she's got a degree and she didn't have educational impairments, again, they're going to think I'm not that disabled historically, but that is not the case at all. Like I said, there's a big backstory to my degree. When I was a child, I was very educationally impaired. I had an educational psychologist assessment when I was 9 years old, and saying that I had severe, if I actually use that word, severe difficulties all across the curriculum. So if that's not educational impairment, I don't know what is, and I don't want to have it on my report saying something that isn't correct about me, about my past. So I had significant educational impairment when I was at school. It wasn't just social problems I had significant educational impairment. And I've got severe dyscalculia as well. Actually, I should have asked her to put on that report, I forgot, it doesn't matter. As long as she puts on the report that I've got severe educational impairment, that's fine. But yeah, when I was at school, I had severe educational impairment. I mean, as I say, I got assessed by an educational psychologist when I was 9 because of that. And I was quite delayed in quite a lot of areas. In some areas I was very advanced. Like reading, being able to read, but I didn't have any comprehension. That didn't develop normally. I have it now, it's taken a long time to get there, but I'm talking when I was a kid, it was very impaired, comprehension. So yeah. And like I said, when I was a teenager, I was given intensive tuition to learn how to write essays. You know, that's how I got the degree eventually, because I guess, yeah, I have latent potential, clearly, because otherwise I wouldn't have got a degree, but it was only achieved because of intensive tuition, and I was educationally impaired, and if I hadn't received that intensive tuition, I wouldn't have got a degree. It was only because I was given that intensive tuition. If I come from a different family and I hadn't got that, I would have left without any qualifications, literally. That's part of the only reason I got GCSEs, was because I had intensive tuition. So that shows that I was educationally impaired. So, yeah, so I asked her to change that, so she has. And the third point was when she said, it was on your report, it said, that before the pandemic, I could volunteer and travel, which I could, but that was only achieved thanks to intensive support. Because if I just put that, someone might read it and think, oh, so she could do these things. But again, they need to explain that it was only possible because of intensive support. You know, it took 8+ years of support worker input from the local autism charity for me to actually do that. And yes, I did manage to do it eventually, but it was after intensive support, and I couldn't travel loads of places. You know, that implies I could travel loads of places. I was quite limited to where I could travel to. But I was getting better, you know, and there were places I was travelling to quite a lot, so I was getting a lot better, but it was quite limited, and I could only do it thanks to intensive support. So I asked her to put that on her, because I said otherwise, you know, it's kind of minimising my struggles and all the struggles I took to get there. Well, she understood. She was a really nice person, by the way, this secretary. She did understand. So that's good. So I've asked them to edit it. So I'm hopefully going to get revised. The other thing I didn't like on there was this whole idea that I could somehow manage the ADHD symptoms with self-help techniques. You can't manage ADHD symptoms with self-help techniques. I mean, come on. I mean, basically it's effectively saying that it's acceptable that I've been left without support for 5 years. I mean, my dad's been doing all my caring. It's not like exactly I've been managing with self-help techniques. I've just been coddled and essentially massively helped and managed by my dad doing all the background caring, which social services should be doing. So it's not acceptable, really, them saying you could just manage with self-help techniques. That is not acceptable either. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below, and thank you for watching.